Hey, welcome. Today I'm going to be talking about sixth grade. Have you ever walked into a sixth grade classroom and asked a group of sixth graders to get out a pencil? It's kind of like this. All right, can everyone get out a pencil? I've got a pencil. Do you have a pencil? I have a pencil with an eraser. I have a pencil with a dinosaur. I have two pencils with a dinosaur. Oh, I wish I had a pencil with a dinosaur. It is just a very special time in I think our lives when we are sixth graders or 11 years old. It's, just the other day I was in a friend's classroom and two sixth grade boys came up to us and they had a bunch of push pins in their hand. And they come up and they're like, "You'll never guess what happened." I'm like, "Oh, this is going to be good." Goes, "Yeah, I had these push pins in my hand and then my friend here, he squished my hand together and it hurt." Yeah, that is what the world of sixth grade is like. I've been teaching sixth grade since, I think like 12 years. Now I have a mixed sixth through eighth grade classroom, but I spent a lot of time in sixth grade. I've taught self-contained sixth grade, and I've taught sixth grade in a K-8 setting. So what I want to get into first is the sixth grade experience. Attitudes suddenly shift in sixth grade. It's this really weird age where, kids want to still be cool, but they still want to play with Legos. They still have that imagination and they still want to be goofy and play around with you. And this isn't to say that this doesn't happen in higher grade levels or even that adults don't still have this, you get me a set of Legos, I am going to play with it. I'm going to put it together. But, I'm not on the, carpet playing with my Legos when I get home from school every day. But sixth grade is that age where 1 minute they're being like so cool, "Oh my goodness, look at my drip. Look at me using the vernacular." Even though I think that might be some young people vernacular that's going out. I don't know. If you're a young person watching this, should I still be saying drip? I don't know. So there's that. And also the other thing is boys versus girls in this grade level. Boys are very, I'm sorry, boys, but immature. I just told you the pushpin story, right? So boys are like that all the time. Last year I had a classroom because again, I have the 6th through 8th grade classroom, and my classroom is usually still 6th grade heavy. I have, this year I have 24 students. I know it's kind of a dream. I have 24 students in my 6th through 8th grade ELD class, and more than half of them are 6th graders. And so they bring a different kind of energy, especially 6th grade boys. This year I have mostly girls, so it's it's a lot different this year. Last year I had mostly boys and I had a smaller class. So last year I had a smaller class, but I had mostly boys and they were mostly 6th grade boys. And so at the end of every day, it was like I felt like I had put my finger in a light socket. That's what I felt like I look like at the end of a lot of days, just because of the energy that they bring. And 6th grade boys are a lot of fun. I'm not bagging on. I'm not here to bag on 6th grade boys. I actually really enjoy their playfulness, and as much as I was like, "Why do you have those push pins? How did you get all those push pins? I have so many questions for you." It's still just, they're really fun. They're a really fun age, the boys. And girls are different in 6th grade. So girls come in one of two varieties. They either come in they are now adults. They seriously, I'm like, I could put in for a substitute, or I could have such and such run my classroom. Seriously, like that is the maturity level. Or there's a lot of gossip. Oh my God, can you believe that she's looking at me? She's looking my direction. So you know what? I think that she likes the boy that I like, and I don't like her because she can't like the boy that I like. So that's the kind of stuff that happens. And again, this isn't just something that happens with sixth grade girls. It happens with girls that are older. It happens with girls that I know today. So it's not just a sixth grade girl thing. It's just I've been teaching this grade level for a while. So it's kind of what I notice is that girls swing one or two ways. But you get so much more work done in your classroom as a teacher when you have sixth grade girls than when you have sixth grade boys. Their attention is easier to hold. They maintain tasks for a longer time. And I think that's really crazy because we all know that puberty, this is the age where puberty starts. And so with that also comes some like very special challenges. In attitudes often shift. I have parents that come to me and they say, Miss Chandler, what has happened to my child? My sweet little baby angel has got like the worst attitude and all their grades are falling. I don't understand. I don't know what to do. Just parents, if you're out there and you're listening to this, know that that is a completely normal thing. This is something that happens with middle schoolers regardless of age, but I will say that I just get more work from my girls. And it's a funny thing. If I were to pin up, and again, I don't want to make this like a gendered thing either. Like I am a little bit, I know that I am, but there's just something developmentally different about when you have an XX chromosome and when you have an XY chromosome. And if I put up work from my boys and my girls in the classroom, you will be immediately able to point at it and tell me where's the boys' work and where's the girls' work with probably like an 80% accuracy. Every now and then you have that unicorn boy that comes in and you're like, oh my goodness, I cannot believe that you did this. It's just there's this quality of work thing because boys at this age, what they really want to do is they want to scribble as quickly as they can, get the work done so that they can look over at their friend and make faces or throw things at them. Like that's what they live to do. They live to poke and prod at their buddies. Whereas girls, I give them a task and they can stay focused in it. I'm getting like masterpieces. We just finished LPAC testing, and I'm going to be talking about one-pagers later this week in my Teacher Carpenter PLC, but I had them complete a one-pager about the Lion King because after we did our LPAC testing, it's like, all right, we've been using our brains big time. Let's watch a movie. Let's watch it in English so that we can improve our English skills, and then we're going to do a one-pager on it. And so we did this one pager, and I mean, I got some works of art. The one of my kids brings up their Lion King one pager, and I'm like, was I doing this when I was 11 years old? I was a little bit more like, I was the anomaly. I was a little bit more like the boys. When I was in the 5th grade, so one grade below this, so I'm sure 5th grade teachers, you can probably relate to some of the stuff I'm talking about too. Similar age. My dad walked into Miss Thomas's class. Shout out to Miss Thomas. Thank you for putting up with me for 2 years. We had her for 4th and 5th grade. But my dad walks into the class for open house at the end of the year. We had done these posters for Earth Day. And oh man, I was so proud of mine. I had put so many animals on it. I had written so many facts about the environment. I mean, I was like, wow, this is so good. I had like used crazy bubble letters. You know, they started off, they were all like different sizes, the title. Like it was like diagonal and they were different sizes. But man, I was like, whoa, this is so good. And my teacher goes, so John, do you know which one of these is Chandler's? And he goes, yeah, it's the messiest one. And he was right. It was the messiest one. And this is why, shout out to Miss Thomas. This is why I love teachers. So maybe this is why I am a teacher too, is she looks at him and she goes, you know, messiness is a sign of creativity. So thank you, Miss Thomas. I've never forgotten that, because yeah, I was creative. And I think a lot of these boys are creative. So I don't want anyone for a minute to think that I'm hating on any kids that are, messy. Yeah, it's just my job as a teacher to say, you know what, let's do that again. Or, you know what, that is really creative. I see you like poured your heart out and soul into that. And also just knowing where that balance is. Knowing when a kid's created something that's really cool, that you, that they are really proud of, not bashing on it, right? Like they're like, oh, I see you put, wow, awesome. Just knowing that balance, I think, is also important as a teacher. And Miss Thomas got that. And I hope that I bring that to my kids too. So let me see where I'm at now. Okay, so talking a little bit about identity. This is also an age where adults are thinking that, not adults, kids are thinking that adults aren't cool anymore. To a point. Again, it's like that. It's this transition age. So you're going to have some sixth graders that are going to be like, oh my goodness, that these adults are so cool. They're so awesome. And then you're going to have kids that are going to, they're going to enjoy you. But they are much more concerned at this age with what their peers think about them. This is also the age where cliques are forming. They are starting to go off in their little groups. They're finding themselves. They're finding their identities. They're finding the people that like the same things as them. And so what they're really doing at this age is they're balancing their social identities with the classroom. And so what I mean by that is they're navigating who they are, and then also still trying to figure out what kind of student they are. And so what I really want to dig into here today is not just about who sixth graders are, but what's best for kids this age. And so this could be sixth graders. We can also kind of just look, the beginning part is just kind of about sixth grade, but you can look below and above for some of this stuff as well. And so the first thing I want to talk about is the self-contained classroom in sixth graders. And maybe even fifth graders too, but really sixth graders. I taught in a self-contained sixth grade classroom 5 years, I think for about 5 years. That sounds right. Might not be perfect. Do not quote me on that. And I tell you, I think that it was, I'm not here with all the research in front of me. I'm just here talking to you about my experience. So this is not quantitative data. This is qualitative data. But from my experience with sixth graders in a self-contained classroom, I don't think that it's appropriate. Because I'm talking about them trying to navigate the social world, the thing where adults aren't cool anymore. I'm cool, but you know what I mean. They're trying to navigate that, and also having them in one classroom all day long when their hormones are sometimes raging. At minimum, they need that get out of the classroom and have that transition time. And so having that transition time, that 3 to 5 minutes between classes just to socialize, and for the boys it might be, throw a football back and forth, whatever. I don't know what the rules at your school are, but these kinds of, just having that time to do that, I think is important. Also, it is, it's too much time in one room with one teacher. I don't, and again, I don't know what the science is behind it, but I went from, and maybe there are some teachers that think otherwise. And if you do, tell me why you think that they should be in a self-contained classroom. I'd be really interested to hear what you have to say. But from my experience, when I went from teaching in a self-contained classroom to teaching at a K-8, and we're going to talk a little bit about a K-8, a comprehensive middle school, and then maybe like a kind of a hybrid. But when I transitioned over to having them switch classes, I was like, this is so much better for them. So much better for them, because also they've got to get ready for high school. And I think when they only have 2 years to do that, that's a little overwhelming, because they go from, being 6th grade, being the kings and queens on campus, to a 7th grade classroom where they're like, oh my God, what's going on here? And it's overwhelming. And so it's going to be overwhelming in 6th grade. And if we push it off another year, it's going to be overwhelming in 7th grade. So just that reason alone, I really like the switching classes model. I don't know exactly what you would call the switching, because I know they're self-contained. Lord help me, my brain. I know there's probably a word for it. But so I think that that's good for them. And then, there could be some talk between, a K-6, where you have 5th and 6th graders. I've heard of that model, where you have a K-6, 5th and 6th graders have multiple teachers. And then there is the comprehensive middle school, where they're just like, you're doing it just like the 7th and 8th graders. And then there's also what I think, after my years in after my years in a K-8, is I'm not a super fan of the K-8. I'm not going to get into this today, but I'll just say a little snippet about it, is that a K-8, you kind of lose sight of the middle school. The programming isn't as great. The electives aren't really great. So after my time in a K-8, I would rather have it for the 6th graders than self-contained. But I really think a comprehensive middle school is the way to go for these kids. And even a comprehensive middle school that has like a hybrid program specifically for middle schoolers. Because if we're all about the kids and we're about supporting the kids and doing what's best for the kids, what I think is best for a 6th grade student is for them to slowly transition into middle school. I was saying this on my podcast, Nerducators, shout out Brian Russell and me. But I was saying that something about training wheels, about something else, and giving kids training wheels. But this is kind of the same thing. I did just hop on a bike and learn to ride a bike when I was a kid. Lord knows how many times I fell off. But I think too, having those training wheels for 6th grade students is a really good idea. I would even maybe argue it for 5th graders. I think it kind of depends on the 5th graders. So what I would do for most middle school aged 11-year-old 6th grade kids is I would have them have less teachers than the 7th and 8th graders. And you'd have one teacher. I forget the name of this. If you know what the name of it is, drop it in the chat. But I would have them have one teacher for English and history, one teacher for math and science. Then they would have PE, and then they would have an elective and whatever, or if they needed ELD or a study skills class, that kind of stuff. That's what I would do. And I would still give them the breaks in between. I would have, you have English class, break history class, or English class, break math class, however it is, but I wouldn't have them have as many teachers because it is a lot. It is overwhelming for kids to go from having one teacher who knows them deeply to having 5, 6, 7 teachers. I think some of my students, we have currently, so I have AVID class as well. So those AVID students, they have 6 classes a day. So they can have 7 teachers because one of those classes can be an AB class. And honestly, I think 2 of them, if they didn't have AVID and they just had a different elective, they could have 2 different rotating AB elective classes. So 8 teachers, 7 or 8 teachers, that is mind-blowing. To go from that to that is overwhelming. And that is part of the reason that I think we see a drop in 6th grade kids in their grades. And some of them, even in 7th and 8th grade, is that they haven't had the training wheels. And now, does every kid need the training wheels? No. I'm thinking of some students that I've had that it's just been like natural flow. But it's a lot, so why not help them and why not support them? So I'd argue for a comprehensive middle school where they could have fun electives taught by teachers who specialize in those electives with facilities to accommodate like a really robust physical education, as well as a lot like a full science lab and that kind of stuff. Really robust, comprehensive middle school with a supportive structure for those incoming 6th grade students. And if you are a 6th grade teacher, you are a 6th grade teacher. You're not teaching 7th grade, you're not teaching 8th grade, because what I've seen at schools that I've taught at before, currently, is you stretch the kids out way too far. So I think I made a good point there. At least I hope I have. And so that is one way I'd support them, is with the structure. And I had another point that I was going to make, but my brain just kind of went. If it comes to me, I'll come back to it. But I'm going to move on to some other things that I think would support students. I talk about it a lot. You've heard me say the word a lot, but AVID. I think that AVID strategies, AVID training for teachers, AVID elective courses for all students. I know that, so AVID is kind of, the program itself is for kids that are kind of middle of the road kids. But I think that it's good teaching, period. The strategies that you learn are just good teaching. And so if a kid's not in the AVID elective, then I think AVID strategies in the classroom are really important. I think that regardless of what I teach, whether I'm teaching ELD or, before when I was teaching English, taught history, I teach math. But before that, I was still doing things to help kids stay organized. It's an important skill. It's not, it's not standard 1.3a. Students will be organized so that they can be better readers and writers. But students do better when they know how to organize. So we teach them, there's like skills in standards that I think are kind of about being able to have your thoughts organized. And I think that that's critical when I'm going to write something. I'm going to use a graphic organizer to organize my thoughts, right? Maybe I'm taking notes. The style of notes that I choose to take is also going to help me organize my thinking. So teaching kids all these kinds of skills are important, right? Note-taking strategies, you do learn about a lot of different kinds of note-taking strategies in Avid, 2-column notes, 3-column notes, Cornell notes. Also, the regular notes, I call them summary notes. I don't think it's actually, correct me if I'm wrong out there, but I don't think that Avid directly tells you about summary notes, but summary notes are just where you do the little dash and you write what the person says, dash, write what the person says. Like that's another kind of note-taking strategy. And then you go back through them and you highlight and you write a summary. Anyway, these are all skills, and figuring out which strategy works best for me and my brain. That's a skill. And I think we need to start off in middle school teaching kids how to do these things. And it doesn't matter what class you're in. Taking notes and having that skill is important. And I don't see in any curriculum, please correct me if I'm wrong, but I have yet to come across a curriculum that so you'll see graphic organizers. You'll see like the spider web with the big circle and then the lines coming off of it. You'll sometimes see like 2-column notes and 3-column notes, those kinds of things, or charts. You'll see those I think sometimes embedded in curriculum to help students understand and organize ideas. But I have not really explicitly come across note-taking in any of the curriculum that I've been given. So if you have a curriculum out there that explicitly teaches that shows that, please give it a shout out and tell me which, and if you like it. But I think that that's something that we need to supplement whatever we're teaching with. I've always taught my kids how to take notes. Once I got into Avid and I got the Avid training, and I was like, oh my goodness, this is really awesome that there's this program out here that's training teachers on these different styles and giving this to students, because the graphic organizers are great, and that's something that I've always used. But also, how do you take notes? I got to college and I didn't learn about Cornell notes or thinking about the different ways to use 2-column and 3-column notes. I think I've used 2-column notes in my life when I was in college, but I didn't use a lot of these things. And I think having all that like in my tool bag is really, really fucking useful. And along with that, also when we're talking about organizing, my friend April that was on the podcast last week, she was like, I don't know if you've seen children's backpacks. And I'm like, yes, I have seen them. I have to give out a shout out to my Avid class this year. They are unicorns. Usually when I do backpack checks, and it's one of the things. So in Avid, we also talk about organization. So is your backpack organized? Is your binder organized? I also do, is your Google Drive? Do you know how to set up a calendar? What does your email look like? What is your agenda? Do you know how to keep an agenda? So these are all things that I do with kids too. And I also am going to say, these are things that we need to be teaching 6th graders how to do. And maybe even before in younger grades. But the shout out that I want to give to my Avid students, I have a 7th and 8th grade Avid class. We are trying to grow the Avid program at our school currently. And I always rub my hands together when it's backpack check time, because I think I'm always like, yeah, these kids' backpacks, they gonna need to clean and organize them. These kids that I have this time around, they have really clean backpacks. So bravo, you get 10,000 points to do with however you see fit, but I'm super impressed with them for that. But overall, most students' backpacks are trash bags. They are trash bags that they carry on their backs along with their notebooks and folders. And often folders are mini trash bags inside of the trash bags. So I guess that's the first thing I'm going to say to everybody who's listening out there. Teach your kids how to organize their backpacks. I mean, I know that we feel really, um, there's this expectation to, we've got to get this done, we've got to get this done, we've got to get this done. At the end of the day, if you've taken the time to teach kids how to take notes, you've taken that extra hour, um, you've let them organize their backpacks or their desks, dump out their desks, whatever it is, giving them that time is really worth it. Because if their backpacks are clean and organized, they're getting things done faster. And again, it's also a skill. They'll look back and be like, ah. I can remember teachers, because along with my really beautiful poster that I made for Earth Day, my desk was always full of mess. It crammed awful. And I would say that, again, it's just Miss Thomas. I hope one day I get to have Miss Thomas on this podcast because she was a really special lady. But I remember her giving us that time. I think we did it, I don't know how often we did it, but I can remember cleaning out my desk. And by the time that I got to, maybe not middle school, I can't quite remember what my backpack looked like in middle school, but today I'm a pretty clean and organized person, and my classroom is really clean and organized. My kids often laugh at me because if I see something out of place, I'll look at it. I give the item the teacher look. I'm like, and they're like, we know, Miss Chandler, everything goes in its home. Everything has a place. We know. And so I also keep a really clean and organized classroom. Not bashing on you if you don't. It's just something that really, I need it. I need the clean classroom. My mind needs it. But I know that when my classroom is clean and organized, the kids, it's easier to find materials. It's just easier for the kids, easier for me. And then I think another thing that I'd like to talk about with really supporting sixth graders is each of us, especially if they're not in a self-contained environment. Because if you're not in a self-contained environment and you're teaching all the subjects, you know what load you're giving the students. Okay, I've given them a lot of math this week. So maybe I need to balance out what I'm expecting them to complete in English, and then next week I'll maybe adjust the load for that. Because one of the things that happens in middle school too is I give X amount of work, this teacher gives X amount of work, and I think sometimes, and I've been guilty of this, and so I've really worked hard on looking at my students' grades. I mean, I do grade checks with my avid students. I do grade checks, but I kind of look at where are their grades right now, what kind of assignments do they have with other teachers, and I try to balance it. And one of the things that happens with this is I actually end up putting less things in the grade book because if they're overloaded in one class, I'm not going to add to that burden. Now, speaking for real, I would like to give them more things to put in the grade book of my avid class. And before, when I was an English and history teacher, I also wanted to give them more work. But if I see that they've got a ton of assignments in another class, I'm not going to do that because I know it's not fair to them. I was having a conversation with a good friend of mine this morning, and she was talking about what's going on in, what's the difference between education in Finland and America. And sometimes people say you can't compare those two because it's like comparing tomatoes with motorcycles. It's two completely different groups of people. So you can't compare them. But I think you can. I think it's more like, what are they doing that's really good for the kids? And one of the things that they do in Finland is there isn't a ton of homework. So another thing that I started doing in my middle school classroom is I try to keep the work in the classroom. I do not give homework. When I was a kid and I came home and I had an hour of homework, that was really great. And once I got to high school, it was just like, nope, this is just what you got to do. You know, you got all this work. That's that. I mean, let's think about this, like for real. Kids come to school at 8 o'clock in the morning, and they leave at 2:30 at the school I'm at. Other schools, you're going to have a similar amount of time. So they come to school and they work. They are working their minds all day long. And I know that every teacher on here knows what kids are like after lunch. My 5th and 6th period classes. Let me tell you a story about this. Okay, so my wife, I love her so much. I love her, she's my wife. When we first started dating, I wanted her to come and see my classroom. And she was available to come and be a visitor in my 5th period class. This was a 5th period history class that was after lunch. Oh my God, it was a special class. That's when she could come. It would have been great if she would have been able to come. And you know, when you're like working out when your observations are going to be with your admin, you do not want it to be 5th period after lunch, 5th or 6th period after lunch. No, because the kids are fucking crazy after lunch. Oh my God. They are different. It's like, you know, don't feed, sorry kiddos, I'm not saying this about you if you're listening, but you know the whole thing about don't feed the gremlin after midnight? It's like, oh my goodness, after lunch, they're like, ah! Wild. It's a different child. It's like I have a sweet little baby angel in the morning. I'm here to learn, Miss Chandler. And then after lunch, it's like, are you really the same kid? Brains, I mean, think about it for us. Brains, the amount, we have kids, we expect them to be at school, I think it's about 6.5 hours. And most of that time should be, you know, according to the people that make the rules, should be learning, right? Well, and I want kids to learn. I want kids to spend the maximum amount of time that they can, that their brains are capable. I want them to spend learning. And honestly, I think that that's capped at 4 hours a day. I think school should be 8 to 12, and then we figure something else out because I know, don't want to put the burden on the parents. You have a lot of parents that work 9 to 5. And so it's just not possible for them to, you know, pick their kids up at 2:30 and like at 12 o'clock. That would create a lot of problems. So I say, look at a different solution, but the learning should happen in the morning, 4 hours. And that's again why I am not a proponent of kids, of homework. That's why I just don't think that homework works. It's just, you know, did I like that I did homework when I was a kid? Did I like it? No, I wanted to be playing. I wanted to be running, jumping, climbing trees, and throwing things at people out there. And kids want to play too. And I think that we take that from kids. We take that playtime from them. So I think we get really good at the teaching we do in the classroom. And if I was in charge of the world and I could blow up the educational system right now, I would put 8 to 12 cap. I'd make the afternoon fun. And, you know, so I guess vote for me. I'm not running for anything right now, but you know what I mean? I think kids need that. So that also goes along too with the load that we're giving kids. Don't give kids this big load of work to complete. It's not good. It's just not good for them. And it's not good for you either, because if you are, I want to grade, I want to zoom in on a standard. I want to zoom in on, so when I taught writing in 6th through 8th grade, so if it was some kind of writing a narrative, I want to zoom in on each piece and see if the kid is doing that. And if I'm having them do a million exercises and I'm putting all of those in the grade book, there's no way for me to read that. The way that I used to do it is I want one quality piece of work from you, and each standard was a grade. So one piece of work, I'm looking at your capitalization, punctuation, spelling. Boom. That's a grade. All right, I'm looking at your ability to write a story, beginning, middle, end. Boom. That's a grade. All right, I'm looking for your ability to use X, Y, and Z, literary device or devices. Boom, that's a grade. And so what that did for me is it really allowed me to, like I said, zoom in on the standard, but really look at the quality of their work. I'm not looking for quantity. I'm not looking to check off a box saying that you did something. I want to know that you learned something. And it is my opinion, and you can disagree with me that if you like, but it is my opinion that if you give the kids 10,000 things to do and you grade them on all those things, they're not learning. They're not having time to process the information. They're not looking at their mistakes. There's the, I think, is her name Jo Bowler, the Week of Inspirational Math lady. She always talks about how mistakes make your brain grow. And that's something, I went to her professional development years ago. And I love that. I love mistakes make your brain grow. It's true. And if we're just giving kids, and it's not that I make the mistake, right? And then I make another mistake, and then I make another mistake, and that's how my brain grows. No, you make the mistake, and then you go, oh, this is how it was wrong. And then you do it again. And you go, I got it right that time. Or maybe it's still a little wrong. And that's okay. That's what I tell my kids all the time, is it's like, it's okay if it's wrong. Just do it. And if we're overwhelming kids with an unfair workload, then they're not having the time to process that. So that is my argument for not bogging them down with what I really think is just busy work. Don't give them busy work. Zoom in on the standard. Anyway, there's me. Imagine a soapbox. I'm standing on it. That's the speech that I'm giving. And I think that goes to my very last point for today, which is, let's get away from the pull yourself up by the bootstraps mentality and get into that how can we support them mentality. That doesn't mean that we are being soft on them. I have very high standards for my students. If I've asked you to do something, I want you to give me your best. And I think when I ask you for that, if I'm not overwhelming you and giving you too much, if I've been clear about my expectations, if I am warm and loving and kind, and I'm giving you the support that you need, then I can still be firm and supportive. I think you can be both without, I just think you can be both, period. I'm going to put a nice little period cherry on top right there. And with that, that's all I've got for you today about my thoughts on sixth graders. I hope you enjoyed the podcast. Please give it a like and subscribe, all that. And until next time, keep building something great.